Marv here, Words to the Wise. This is part 3 of the story of the sheep shepherd and the wolf. The last part I was just describing got sidetracked off and talking about local things, about how the shepherd and the sheep use the acquisition of resources to meet the commodities in need, and how population and expansion of the farm will do this, and the necessity of constant expansion because there's a constant increase in the number of the sheep. As the farm grows, the needs grow. Now we're going to go in more discussion, more specifically, and to show how it reflects in this philosophy reflects in government and religion. I'm going to use the government first. It's going to be touchy enough. I'm going to use religion last because I don't want to lose you. That's going to be real touchy. And I ask you to refer back to the cup on an earlier lecture about taking in knowledge, assessing it, rolling it around, and deciding what to do with it, whether you make it belief or not. And if you haven't listened to the lecture of the cup, I would ask you to do such. Alright, back to the point. Using examples of government for shepherd and sheep philosophy versus wolf philosophy is, wolf philosophy believes that you can't, the wolf cannot be treated the same in Colorado as the wolf that would live in the Everglades. If you tell these two wolves they have to act and behave and be treated the same, you'll destroy both wolves, because the environment and conditions and the way they have to live is different. If you try to make one live like the other, you destroy at least the one, for sure. This is the way mankind works basically in our urban versus rural society. City folk don't understand country folk. Country folk don't understand city folk. Principles. And once again, this dynamic of individual versus cooperation we're going to see. Government example in the cooperation of wolf, like I said, it's local control. As closer we get down to manage, we don't just want to manage this. If we can, we don't even want to manage the forest. We just want to manage the valley of where we are, and let that valley over there deal with it. I have to agree, the downfall by using this philosophy, there's not as much in connection in who controls the in-between and what defines when one starts and the other ends. It's an agreement that the packs and the philosophy of this has to do. You can't. Their belief is everything starts from the bottom, greater power at the bottom, very little power at the top. The will of the pack is not the important, it's the will of the individual, and if the individual doesn't like it, the individual can leave and start his own pack somewhere else. And that's the point, the wolves that will respect that and let you leave. Sheep shepherd on the philosophy says, as I described the 3 types of shepherds in part 2, talking about there's the one shepherd own it all. The shepherds here all want to be equal. A whole bunch of shepherds have a bunch of equal farms, kind of like a union or a co-op, and we can each run our own farm differently, but we all can sell our stuff at the same price and treat it equally there. And we'll get a committee to build that to make sure that runs. But I went through this in part 2, so let's don't do that again. So the people will actually have to be important, being personally responsible on wolf's side at the local level and meet local level needs, and only go to the upper up. As I said, the wolf only howls when he can no longer deal with the game he is, and other wolves will come to his aid. This philosophy of wolf philosophy, whether it's in local governments, is the same philosophy. We want to do our own thing, and if we howl, we want more wolves to come help us, and we'll get together and do this. But if I ain't howling, just don't be over my shoulder trying to get part of my meat all the time. Wolf philosophy. Whereas sheep shepherd philosophy says, hey, we have to control these things. We have to moderate. If we don't control these resources, I got sheep that's going to go hungry. I have to know where to put up fence. I have to know when to open up gates. I have to know that when there's not enough water there, I have to ship water from over there over to here. I have to move those sheep out and tell them to come over here and get this water. I'm the one that has to make those decisions for their own welfare, because I am responsible for their needs. And the thing is, the sheep will allow that because they know that's what I'm in charge of, and they will let me do it. their needs of government is going to be centralized. They want to have power at this, and then the sheepdogs make sure that the policies to meet their needs for the entire farm are done, because the sheepdogs are dedicated to the farm. That's what they're dedicated, because they make their existence off the farm. When I think of this, I always think of the book Animal Farm, and if you haven't read it, you'll see why that was such a great book and why this all fits in as well. You have the structure that's required for the cooperation, and only with that cooperation. If I get a bunch of sheep that are going to be rowdy and I have to sacrifice them, the sheep over here are doing really good, but these sheep over there just keep giving me problems, so we're going to ship these sheep out and put them into an event and create crisis for them and reduce their numbers so that I can get rid of that problem. And on second is, not only do I get rid of that problem, the resources that they were using now I can redirect over here and meet the needs of y'all and see their sacrifice was necessary. Life is good. This is the process. This is how government works. Now, let's go to religion. Religion gets real touchy. The difference between wolf philosophy and shepherd-sheep philosophy. Wolf philosophy and religion says, this is no offense to this is just knowledge to the cup. This, I don't mean to offend. I'm going to do that right off the bat, that political correctness thing. Wolf philosophy is, if you believe in God or for that God, you have a right to. You meet God in your own accord. It's you and Him. Just like the governments, I said America was for wolves, by wolves. You have inalienable rights given to you by God. It's your relationship. God, I'm personally responsible. I make things, I quote the sin and all that stuff. I hold that personally responsible. This is what I do. I find God is, I walk down the road of life, I'm with God. People that, the philosophy is the mountain of faith. If you climb the mountain of faith, at the end, when you get to the top, you're going to find God. Is there the philosophy? Wolf philosophy is not that. Wolf philosophy is, as you walk, climb the struggle, the mountain of faith, you find God, because God is the mountain. And it's in the climbing that you find God. Wolf philosophy. If you go through your religious aspect for that religion, is you can find God through those measures, through your own actions, through your own deeds, through those measures that you do to benefit the individual and a moral code. But a personal responsibility, moral code, personal responsibility, wolf philosophy of religion. Sheep and shepherd philosophy of religion is, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you cannot be with God until this process of acceptance of an in-between, an intermediate. You have to do what the church says. You have to go through certain customs of this church or that curse. In that flow of dynamic, only finding God through sheep-shepherd philosophy is there's an intermediate. There's something in there that you have to do before you get to be with God. God for you is, you may struggle the top of the mountain, but even as He watches you struggle the top of the mountain, He still keeps you apart. I don't help you in the struggle. You do the struggle and have to do all the acceptance to me. That's as a cooperation, you have to give. And give to that group. Give to the shepherd. And then once give to the shepherd, only then can the shepherd take your sacrifice of wool and give you salvation. Examples of sheep-shepherd philosophy is Christianity, Judaism, not Shintoism, Judaism, Islam, anything. These are all sheep-shepherd religions, and they're good. They all have a policy of helping define a moral code. Wolf philosophy is more, I would say, more of a Buddhist. You don't have to go through a specific process. Through your actions, through meditation, through your action services, in that climbing, do you walk with God? You don't have the expectation of God at the end. You have the joy of walking with God at the daring. Whereas the other side gives it as a reward at the end. The other one is an action of doing, daring. which goes into the story of the three-legged stool, which I am going to tell a little later, but not in this one. This is the difference between the shepherd philosophy and wolf philosophy. We find it in all things. It's not defining what one side is right and one side is wrong. You must understand, you're either going to approach it through a collective as the group and say we have to cooperate, or you accept it as the wolf philosophy of personal individual, and we'll work together as a pack, but you still have to be personally responsible. Whereas the shepherd sheep philosophy says you meet our needs, and then trade out, we do the sacrifice and do the requirement of sacrifice is different. You have to give to the shepherd for the sacrifice of any salvation, whereas you have to give the sacrifice on the wolf sacrifice is dedicating itself of acknowledgement that it has to be personally responsible. It cannot lay the fault or blame of any action on any other creature but itself. And all survivability factors relies upon that and through the willpower of those that interact and cooperate with it at its limited basis. And this is the action of the sheep, shepherd, and the wolf. And you think about it, you'll see it in all things. And I really would like for you people to send me your opinions on this philosophy, to understand. I learn, and only by getting feedback into the way other people perceive and to see, it tells me whether my cup is filled with accurate knowledge or belief, or the mix of both. And thank you, and we hope to talk to you soon. Bye.